Just did a long day working out here at our 6-acre spot, repairing some hedgerow stuff, some damaged hedgerow, planting and doing some things over there. I thought I'd take a moment. I'm just going to wander around a little bit. I'm tired after a longer day, and take a look at this pond that Juan and I dug with a skid steer and then an excavator a few years ago. It's absolutely full to overflowing, and a lot of the elements that are on the boundary, the edges of it, are active and growing. I thought it'd be fun to document what they look like in mid-April after a pretty mild winter. If you're interested in the background of this pond, I'm going to link here to the first video talking about the construction. Basically, this is a very, very shallow, but hopefully pretty functional woodland pond. It's a way to hold a whole bunch of water a little higher in the landscape. We have some nursery production spaces and garden spaces downslope that we can use gravity to feed, but also in the early spring here we can pull water with solar panels and pumps to feed our current patches and nursery areas, air prune boxes and the like. And mostly, first and foremost, is it's about having ecosystem service for little creatures. A couple frogs just hopped in when I got over here. Looks like we got some algae, so that tells me we need to start figuring out some really nutrient-hungry aquatic plants. I'd love to put in calamus and duck potato and minari and water lotus and. So lots of different functions that this little pond has in the woods. When we finish with the first pass of machine work with the skid steer, we have the retaining berm at the far end, which I'll take a look at in a little bit, but it's not super interesting. But then we have these side areas, I'm gesturing kind of weirdly here, but behind me, actually what I'm standing on, that were not explicitly needed in order to hold water in this space. And so there's a really fruitful planting opportunity. And these are starting to do pretty nicely in here. I thought it'd be fun to show what this kind of side berm around this pond is up to. Start with where the water runs into it. You can see this little channel through here. And this little nook here is so pleasing to me. I really enjoy it. So we have all these daffodils that are around the edge. If I had thought it through, I think the day when we were doing all this planting, I would have done so much better to have just a huge sack of random spring bulbs, like more daffodils and tulips and all sorts of characters, and just litter the whole space with it, because these are so bright and so pleasurable to see. But we just pushed those in when we first planted, along with some cuttings of white currant, which are growing in here, kind of as an understory in and amongst. You can see a white currant here with the daffodil, and then a ground cover down below of mint, and this is a variety called orange mint. And part of what the daffodils are doing in this particular spot is they're acting as vole protection for this Antovnica apple. So this is a seedling grown, not a grafted, northern Russian apple that should be able to become a massive, massive tree here and put off some big late season keeping apples. With the apple right here to the south of them, we leaned into pretty hard the gumi character. Actually, wait a minute, nope. This one is a cultivar autumn olive. I think this is Charlie's Golden or Amber, a really productive nitrogen fixing early season browse for bees. Most importantly, it's feeding nitrogen to the apple. A little further over, we've got gumi, and that's the character we worked with more. They're a little bit more palatable, a little easier to manage and work. And they're up here on the highest parts of the berm, the driest parts. So even though it's close to the pond, the water level never gets any higher. It's just some pretty poor, lower down from the pond soil. So it kind of bakes in the sun. And gumi is very, very strong at handling that. You can see we've got gumi every little few moments or so, every 2 meters, 6 feet. Lots of nitrogen fixers, nitrogen fixing shrubs that provide fruit and medicine for folks. We had to cut down some pines while the pond was being made, because we needed to cut through the roots. There's a wooded area in here, and so we thought it'd be really nice in replacing the pine once the berm here is done to put in some later succession trees. So this is an Asian pear. We have a whole bunch of failed grafts all over it, but we might come through and try it again. But it's growing beautifully, and maybe we'll just let it be as a rootstock and see what the quality of the fruit is. But this has got another autumn olive supporting it, and then again the gumi. And then on the northern side here, we went pretty strong on the white, red, and pink currants, and then some rhizome barriers in the form of rhubarb. There's senna through here. So this is very early season, and a lot of this stuff's going to really pop a little bit later on. It's just kind of neat to see it this early while things are just waking up. As a ground cover in here, while the soil is raw in the early years, we've got Fuki growing. That's this character, and hello. That appreciates the moisture. It'll slowly go down towards the pond where it'll interact with some lovage and elecampane and valerian, which are all really water affinity herbaceous perennials. So there's a nice flanking of water adjacent plants that can do some really good work. But again, we're still missing those actual water loving plants like the calamus and the irises and the wapato and the skirret and all these different characters that can live truly right at the water boundary there. But Fuki's doing some work as a ground cover here along with valerian, which is that nice friend right there. So yeah, a lot of plants in a berm and a nice opportunity to fill things out. And we need to start being a little bit more thoughtful and not having really deep-rooted trees. You can see coltsfoot all through here. So coltsfoot and Fuki are very similar plants, just from different parts of the world. Nice little frog bopping in there. Makes me so happy to see frogs in here. In fact, there's a little friend. Lovely. I can't wait to get some lily pads for you, so you don't have to just swim in algae. But down on this end, we want to not have deep trees, so we're starting to flank out with running comfrey, a really nice green ground cover for the edge. I'd love to get some suggestions for folks. This is pretty bare, a little bit raw looking. What would you suggest on a water facing side of a water holding earth feature that would be verdant and abundant and beautiful looking and not interrupt the ability of the berm to hold water? That's one side of this pond early in the spring. It'd be nice to revisit this as the gumi and the autumn olives start making some fruits and that we're doing the harvest of those. But let me know if you have any questions about these plants or concerns or other ideas of what we can add. This area is pretty darn full, but especially this far end, the bottom. What should we be adding in there? I'd love to hear some ideas, and if we get some winners and folks are into it, I'll try to add some other plants down there. Thank you so much for watching.